to help you be aware of what's possible as a successful dog trainer. Because some of you don't even know what your potential is. You don't even know what your goal should be and how far you can get. Like, you might think that where you are is pretty much the best that you could expect. You know, whatever level you've already reached that you're already proud of, or the level that you've reached where you really would wish things were more consistent or better. You'd like to go full time and you're not yet, or you're doing pretty well, but you're not really enjoying the business because you're burning out. Somebody called themselves crispy, so burning out so much. There's a lot of things that you might not be aware are possible for your business. So we talked a lot about that, having more time off, having higher income, helping people, helping animals, not even just dogs, rabbits and cats and horses as well, which is amazing. So there are a lot of impacts that you need to be expecting in your business from this kind of stuff that isn't just income increases. It's not just making more money. It's making more in less time. And the time part is just as if not more valuable, because there are things you want to do with it. For example, years ago, I had a couple in my class. It's Crystal. She was making barely hobby income in her business. And now I think they're, I don't know, something like several $100,000 a year or something like that. But the biggest impact that their business had was that Eric, Crystal's husband, was working at a job that he hated, and he was able to quit and join the dog training business, and they've been working together ever since. And they've got like a litter of children, so they get to spend a lot of time with their kids, which is amazing. Glenn and Heather, same thing. When I first met them, they were both working other jobs, so their dog training business was just on the side. Glenn was a teacher. Heather, I think, was a nurse, if I remember correctly. And Glenn was able to quit his teaching job as much as he enjoyed it. He just wanted to have more free time with the family and everything too, and focus on the business. And then later Heather joined the business and stopped her job. So now they both work full time in the dog training business and tell me all the time how they get to spend more time with their son Eli and travel and go to things with him. He has like a drumming competition that he was just in. They got to enjoy. There's a story about Joe, who talked about that the stress of struggle of going up and down with money was so much that he and his wife were, there was tension in the marriage because of basically improving the dog training business saved their marriage. And he talked about how he was really discouraged because there was another dog training business coach that he got burned by. And some of you guys have even told me that in your questionnaires, that you're a little gun shy because things like that have happened. So there are tons of people in this group and people in this community that I tend to like to collect you guys and that can encourage you and have been where you are and know how you feel. And that's such a special thing. The number one focus, which is the one thing that you have to have great in order to make more in less time, which is what is included in your programs, and the importance of knowing and understanding human minds as well. So we are going to be diving more into that today. So how many of you guys got into this business thinking it was a dog business and thinking that this was something that you were going to be able to avoid dealing with people because of it? So there's one key thing that you need to do before you can start creating your programs and starting to create better dog training programs, which is a huge part of your marketing, huge part of your success, huge part of making more in less time, all of that. And even you guys who are non-dog training businesses, this is also what I would cover with you. So Navona, you with your cat and your rabbit training business, this is just as much for you. It's funny how universal this stuff is. It applies to pretty much every service business, really. So many of these things. But once you do this thing correctly, this thing we're talking about today, you will already have laid out the foundation for your entire business, including your programs, your website content, all the words on your website, your sales conversations. Pretty much every part of your marketing is affected by this thing if you do it correctly. What you're learning today is part of program creation. It's actually the most important part. You need to do this first. Basically, what it comes down to is knowing and identifying who you most want to work with. Your ideal client, essentially, is what most people call it. Identifying your ideal client, who you want, and then identifying why they would want you. And that's two totally separate exercises. Who is your ideal client? What are they like? What do you want? And why would they want you? Deep reasons why they would want your help in the first place. Not just what they want, but why they want it. So one of the things that I say all the time that is kind of like has become like a marketing one-liner, like a Mollyism, is that people don't spend money on dog training. They spend money on themselves. And people in general, is not who you're after. So if you're thinking to yourself, oh, people around here won't spend this kind of money on dog training, people around here don't value dog training, that's fine. It's not people in general. It's clients who value what you offer and have a specific problem that you are the solution to. Those people are willing to pay a lot of money to have that problem fixed. So when you identify who you want to work with and you get in their head about what their problems are and why they want the training and what will happen if they don't and all those things, that is the answer to why they will spend the money. So you have to find that answer. You have to know that stuff. If you don't, then you don't know if what you're offering is what they want. You don't know if what you're saying is showing the value of what you do. You're not sure if people are going to look at you and think, X number of dollars for X number of hours or days or time or weeks, or if they're looking at it as X number of dollars for this benefit to my life, this impact on my life. So you are not marketing to the general public or even just people with dogs. You are looking for a type of client who needs your help removing specific stress, specific pain, or a problem that they have that they want to, get rid of, a problem, as well as achieve basically other positive emotional feelings. So they need to be convinced that you can help them get to those positive feelings, essentially. And those are the people who are willing to spend the money. So you're not just trying to target everybody. So when we first start talking about ideal client stuff, a lot of times people just say, I don't know, I just want, I can help anybody with a dog. Anybody with a dog and a checkbook is what people used to say. It's not checkbook anymore. Nobody uses checkbooks anymore, but you know what I mean? That used to be the qualifier, is that it's just some people with a dog. But these are the things we're talking about. And these are not exercises that you just do once and you're done. We focus on this and just about everything else that you do with all of your marketing and dealing with clients, and everything else is affected by this, including how well your clients do in the program that you offer, how quickly they progress, how much they listen to you, because a lot of this has to do with your ability to influence and teach people as well. Just knowing what kinds of things need to be said in order to get some kind of action from someone. So this is super, super important. But it's basically things like, the people you want to work with, what the dog is like, common things about what the people should be like, that the people, listen to you and they follow through and they care about the outcome and they're invested in things that they want to be able to do things with their dog. So, and then expand on those things. Like, what kinds of things do you enjoy about your most favorite clients? What are the things that they all had in common? What were their personality traits like? What are the dog's behaviors like? Who do you do your best work for? Those kinds of things are the what about the people, the things that you enjoy. The truth is, though, there's one thing that often makes this list that might not need to be there. One of the things that you might be tempted to put on your list of things that you want for your ideal clients is how much money they make. For example, high income people who can afford me. And one of the things that's super interesting that people say over and over and over after they do this and they get some more experience in attracting more ideal clients is that often the most ideal clients are the ones who did not just have the money sitting around. Because the more skin they have in the game, the more invested they are in the outcome, the better they do. The better clients they are, the more they listen to you, the more they value you. Because it wasn't necessarily just money sitting around. They might have had to actually move things around to do it. It was an investment. It was something that maybe was not like just a super easy thing. If they're just like, well, I have got plenty of money and I don't have any time and I'm willing to pay somebody else to do this work that I don't want to do. Now you're just somebody who's hired to do a job, like labor. You're not somebody who's hired like a consultant for your knowledge. Totally different perspective, totally different attitude from the person. So you might even just want to attract the same people you're attracting now, but just tend to view you very differently in terms of that value. So we're going to get into why they would pick you and why they would want you and all that stuff in a second. But keep that in mind, that their income level might not even make it on the list. I think we're also going to talk about this in a couple minutes as well. But one of the things that's done wrong a lot of times with avatar, identifying and ideal client identifying and ideal client profiles and things like that is that most of the time people just focus on demographics on that list. How much money do they make? Where do they live? How many kids do they have? What is their age range? All that stuff could be part of it just so you can kind of imagine them as a person. But that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about the people that you most love to work with and what they're like, what they want, all that stuff. So here's the first pro tip. There is a dog trainer that we know really, really well in Ohio. She works with her daughter and one other girl. So it's 3 ladies. and their branding on their website, like their colors and their just whole appearance and, you know, who they work with clients is very different from another trainer in their town. So theirs is very like English garden, you know, countryside, warm, friendly, you know, these 3 ladies with dogs, like just very, very warm and friendly and bubbly and flowery and that kind of stuff. And so you can imagine the kind of clients that they get compared to this ex-military guy whose website is, you know, him with a bite suit and the you know, the Malinois, and his website's red and black and just super, super masculine. So very, very, very different. Both of them very effective, but for very different people. So your demographic and your ideal client isn't necessarily like, it might be just the same people who are in your town that another dog trainer would also be targeting, but just attracting completely different types of people. You need to know them super well. And you also need to know what they value, which gets into why they would choose you. So when they're having conversations with their friends and their family about their dog, after their dog has had some kind of annoying behavior, think about what kinds of things they might be saying to their friends or family. Think about the emotions that they might be feeling. So when you are, and this is another pro tip, let your clients write your program descriptions and your website content for you by listening to the exact words that they use, especially when they describe their problems, and make sure you talk about them the way they talk, not the way dog trainers talk. So one of the things we always pick on a lot is the dog trainer jargon, making it into your content. So like, for example, with the rabbit training, how you train rabbits and how the processes work, and you use words like husbandry and operant conditioning, classical conditioning, things like that. I was kind of laughing because those are the kinds of phrases the dog trainers sometimes use when they're talking to potential clients as well, or even in their marketing, in their dog training descriptions and on their website. That tends to make you less relatable because you're not using words that are already in their head. What you need to know is, what are the words that are already in their heads? Talk the way they talk. For you guys who are in Australia, can you tell everybody, if you guys, any of you Aussies are here, tell everybody what McDonald's is called here. Put it in the comments. So, and that is because they, and even in their commercials, they call it this. Their app is called this in this country, even though on the sign at the actual McDonald's, it's called McDonald's. You know, so everybody knows what McDonald's is, but that's not what they call it here. So in the marketing, they talk about it. They use phrases that the people here use in the marketing because they're talking in the thoughts and the words that are already in their head. When you're thinking about what you're going to write on your website, you need to know kind of what the thoughts are that are already in their heads. So how many of you guys have one of those faces? Macca's. Thank you. So, you know, we got the Australians here. Macca's is what they call McDonald's here. So, and even we say that when we're talking to somebody, we're like, we're going to Macca's, you know, or I'm at Macca's. So that's what that is in Australia. And that's the way it is in the commercials. Like the app is my Macca's app, you know, it's not the McDonald's app. And there's a lot of examples I could use like that. But how many of you guys have one of those faces where people love to tell you their whole life story? They love to tell you all of their problems. Like in the checkout line, they'll just start telling you personal things. I have one of those faces. I don't know what it is. One of my friends say that I have this, like, actually Courtney says it. So Courtney's here. She's a friend of mine in addition to being on my team. And she says that I'm like sunshine everywhere. And so people are just, they think that I'm just not judgmental at all. And they're just going to tell me everything. Right. So I love that. I love people. I'm the kind of extrovert that needs to kind of recharge occasionally, that I do get burned out being around people too much, but I do love people. I'm very empathetic just by nature. One of the things that you need to get good at it, if you're not like that and you're not naturally empathetic toward people, is that you have to realize there's this process that people go through in their heads of making decisions. There's the external problem, which is the stuff that they would Google. How do I get my dog to stop jumping on people? That's the external problem. That's the stuff they would Google. Then they have the internal problems. Those are the feelings that they have because of the thing that they Google. It's the feelings they have, the impacts on their life, the things that keep them up at night. Those are the internal things. So emotions, embarrassment, arguments with the family over the dog, stress and anxiety over the dog's problems. It's the same thing for you. You have the same thing. External problems. I need to know how to market my business better. I need to get some more clients. How do I get more people to find me? Things like that. Those are the external things. The internal things are the embarrassment and the stress and the arguments with your spouse and the feeling like a failure and feeling like that you said you were going to go follow this dream and everybody was like, what are you doing? And now you're proving them right because you're failing. You know, there's all this kind of stuff that goes on internally. That's, you got the external, you got the internal, You need to know the internal things for the people. You need to dive deeper and not only understand them, but be able to make them feel understood by you. People are so much more influenced by people who they feel understand them than they are by people that they feel like they themselves understand. So your marketing right now might be focused a lot on making sure you are understood. This is what I do. This is how I do it. This is why I'm better. All this stuff, just very like, let me be understood. But people are much more influenced by people that they feel understand them more than the ones that they feel that they understand. All of us have that friend who is very, very perceptive and gets everybody, but they themselves feel like nobody gets them. They feel alone in the world, that nobody understands them. That person is going to only feel close to the people that they think understand them. Not all the people in humanity that they think they understand. So this is why this is so, so important. You need to be a good listener, even if it's not something you enjoy. And not only will this give you that effect of making them feel understood and making them like you and trust you, but it will also give you marketing content ideas by listening to the things that the people say to you. So this is why this is so, so, so important. Let me get back to my slides here, and we're going to talk about the reasons why you might struggle to be empathetic a little bit. And there's a few things that get in your way with being empathetic. And this is basically that interfere with people, with you being able to be empathetic. The reason is because people contact you and they might be price shoppers. People don't listen to you. And this is actually fixed by just them having a higher investment. So if they're higher paying people, those people will listen to you a lot more. And the people who don't listen tend to not buy from you anymore if you do these things correctly. So there's this great story of this trainer that I know that I'm working with. And she is in an area where she's doing fantastic. Even when she joined the program that she's in now, she's already doing fantastic. And we're just kind of getting it all smoothed out so she can go further even faster. And she noticed that when she changed her programs, that she gets really dedicated people who highly value her and listen to her, get great results. Everything is awesome. 15 minutes down the road, there is a place that she does agility classes. So she's very familiar with the business. But they also do packages of private lessons. And the packages are like, $75 for one, or packages at a slight discount. Meanwhile, she's making hundreds of dollars per hour in her programs. So the people who come there and do the $75 an hour lessons or packages are the same demographic, same town, same area, same kinds of people. But the people who are doing those packages, they do 1 or 2 lessons and quit, complain about the results that they got, price shop quite a lot, don't listen, don't follow through, don't do their homework, don't come back, don't just all the things you wouldn't like about a client. Same exact town, just a few minutes down the road. The only difference is how the actual programs are structured, and that place that does those packages does not know how people's minds work. So this is why this has to come first. It's the first thing. So these other things might interfere with you being able to be empathetic to people. You're like, people are annoying. People make bad decisions. They get dogs they shouldn't have. It's their own fault that they're in the situation they're in. But if you can get past those things and behave empathetic anyway, then it will help you be able to do this a lot better, and people will like you better, and you'll get better clients. You'll just get people who are less annoying. So let's talk about the 2 magic questions that you should ask from now on at every single consultation. And this will not only make them feel understood and make them feel that you know them and you care about them and all that, it will imply empathy, even if you're sitting there thinking to yourself, like, these people are, what are they thinking? Like, why did they get this dog? Like, all the things that make you like feel like people shouldn't deserve any empathy or anything like that, or anything that might make it a struggle for you as an introvert or as a super like very black and white person, like this is right, this is wrong. Even if you're like that and empathy tends to be tough for you to see externally, asking these questions will imply it, and it will give you language to use later in the conversation and in your program descriptions. So here are the questions. So you ask them about what their dog is doing and what they want and what they don't want. And then you also find out why they would want what you offer with the answers to these questions. This is why they would want you. How is your dog's behavior impacting your everyday life? And what are you afraid will happen if nothing changes? What is the worst case scenario if nothing gets any better? This is what marketing people call the cost of no action. And so basically, and marketing people do the same thing. Like, what is the cost of no action? You have that, like yesterday, that gap between where you are and where you want to be with your income. That number in between is your cost of no action. If you don't implement these things and you don't learn what you need to know to cover that, every month you are spending that gap. by not making it. So it's the same thing. Cost of no action is basically what's going to happen if you don't do anything. What are you afraid of? So in this scenario, in this context, you're asking them for an emotion. What are they afraid will happen if nothing changes? What do they perceive to be the worst case scenario if nothing gets better? So you're not just asking them, what is your dog doing that you want them to stop? What is your dog, what do you wish they would start doing they're not doing? That's important. But usually, most of the time, the listening part of listening to a potential client ends there for most dog trainers. Because what you're trying to do is, in your head, build a training plan. Or in your head, decide, can I train this dog and what's going to be required? How much time am I going to need with this person and this dog to accomplish what needs to be accomplished? And that's as far as you go. Because you're analyzing. You're qualifying in your own head what needs to be accomplished and all this stuff. You're not thinking about it from the standpoint of like, what does this person need to say out loud in order to be more likely to take action? What does this person need to say out loud that I then need to say I understand in order for them to trust me? What does this person need to say out loud in order for me to get the language that would motivate them? And for me to get the language for clients like them to say on my website and to say in my program descriptions, in literal words, the way they say it. So if you think about the deeper reasons why they would want your help. So there's the internal or the external things, the jumping, the pulling, the barking, the reactivity, the chewing, the play biting, the housebreaking, all that stuff, the external things that they can Google. And then you have the internal stuff and how they feel about it. The stress, the embarrassment, the anxiety, the fears that they're going to have to get rid of the dog. They're going to have to put the dog down. They're afraid their dog's going to bite somebody. Or they're just afraid that they're not going to enjoy their dog. They got their dog to go on walks. The kids can't walk the dog because the dog drags them down the street. Now it's all on them. They have to get home from a long day of work and deal with this like hyperactive, crazy dog. Things like that. So my ideal client was the busy family with a goofball. The silly permanent puppy personality dog that jumps on everybody, drags them down the street, runs out the front door, doesn't come when they're called, that plays catch me if you can when they're outside, those kinds of things. And those dogs turn around really, really quickly and have a major impact on those families. My personal preference was not to work with super aggressive dogs. This is not my preference. And that's okay. You might be the kind of trainer who can do that, but just doesn't like it. There are plenty of trainers who do like it. Another example is Daryl posted in the group. Is it Daryl or Darren? Sorry, Daryl. In the group, the video of him teaching a group class that had like a long line of people, like 60 people or something like that in his group class. And I was thinking to myself, it's so amazing in this business that we can create the businesses the way we want them to be. So if you don't want 60 people in a group class or you hate teaching group classes, that's fine. You don't have to do that. If you love teaching group classes and it brings you out of your shell to be around that many people and dogs and you love it, that's great too. You can literally pick the business that you want as long as you know who you want and why they would want you. And then you start with that and build your programs with those things in mind. But then you have the language for it because you've been listening to your people. Listening is by far the most impactful thing you can do in your interaction with people. It gives you a lot of extra power. It's like a superpower. You're learning how to read minds. You're learning how to hear the thoughts of the people that you want to spend money on you and what they would be willing to spend money on. But here is your homework. What you're going to do is post or a comment down below, either one, probably your own post would be great, and talk about who are your favorite people. What do they want? What behaviors do you enjoy helping with? And this is going to be helpful for the prompt to help you building your program. So basically what we're doing is it's kind of like in those cooking shows where they have all of the ingredients out in these little ramekins. I don't know why everything is a food example or a restaurant example, but they have all the little ramekins out so they can just dump everything in, right? Or you get like somebody, they were making their dinner with the HelloFresh box, and the HelloFresh box has all the ingredients like pre-portioned out so you can just dump everything together. So this is what you're doing is you're getting all the ingredients together. And that way it's so much easier to just put it all in the pot all at once. After you get it all together. So if you don't do that, otherwise it's just like going to the fridge and throwing everything in a pile, wrappers and all, the lids of the tin cans and everything, all mixed in. And that thing is not going to be very good because you didn't do any figuring out in advance. So this prompt will help you a ton. What is the highest level results that your ideal client would value? What is the thing that they would most appreciate that you enjoy doing? So what's the highest level results that your ideal client would value? So we've got some great questions coming in too. So I'm going to cover a couple of those that my team has been feeding me in a second. But these guys who've done this work already and have gotten these amazing results, They're not only attracting wealthy people, they don't only have high price programs. You can have, lower price programs too, where people can choose what they value. They can work less and pay more, or they can do a little bit more of the work and pay less. So they can choose what they value, effort or money. So you can still have lower price programs and be able to help more people. You don't only have to be, high end necessarily, but these people who do regularly get $3,000 to $5,000 from normal people for their programs, I'll tell you exactly what's in their programs. And the reason for that variation, like let's just say we're going to talk about how to create a $2,000 to $5,000 program that sells even to regular people. All of your skills are different. Everybody's comfort zone is a little different. Your abilities are different. The speed at which you do things is different. So the price range here is mainly based on those factors and your preference, because you get to decide what you put in it, what the results are going to be, how much you can get done in a certain amount of time, and what you're comfortable with. What price is just slightly outside your comfort zone, not in it, but just slightly outside. So you go do your action step and you keep that in mind. And all of the stuff that you're working on today will save you a ton of time. It gives you just kind of like a speed ramp through building your programs, because you now know who you want and what they value, or who you want and why they want you. Yeah, exactly. So let's get into, there's a couple of comments here that were messaged to me. Let me read these real quick. How do we implement cost of no action on puppies? Great question. So cost of no action is basically their fear of what will happen. And it's very important that you do that. So here's a funny example. Years ago, I also had a wedding planning business, which I started because our dog training business was failing. And that was when things turned around. Some of you guys have heard it. I won't tell the whole story the same way because a lot of you guys have heard it. But during that time, I decided to start a wedding planning business. And one of the things that was a struggle in the wedding planning business is that most of the time, the fears of what will go wrong happen on the day of the wedding. And by then, it's too late for them to hire a wedding planner to prevent all those things. So everything that goes wrong, by the time they realize they need your help, it's too late. And it's kind of the same thing with puppies, is that a lot of the things that they will face haven't happened yet. Sometimes it has, like play biting and house breaking. All of them struggle with that for the most part. But there are fears that they have in their heads that are mild or maybe not fully realized yet that you need to agitate. And marketing people actually call this agitation, which means that you present things that they are afraid of or should be afraid of and make them more afraid. And it's good. It's good for you to do that. It's not manipulative at all. It is influential, which is, there's a difference. It basically means that you are helping them make a decision that they're going to be happier for. It's actually better for them. You're inspiring action that they're going to be grateful that they took, and it's better for them. So you're being influential. And part of that is to say, are you worried about this kind of thing or that kind of thing? Or there's a trick in sales conversation stuff that is kind of like a phrase or a script part to put a lot in, that can be applied a lot of times in your sales conversations, where you talk about other people and you say, many families have told me this thing. So many families have told me that they are worried that if they don't get their puppy trained, they will face things like this and this and this and this problem. Is that something you've ever thought about or something you're worried about yourself? So you're asking them in a way to like pull out their emotions, but you're also implying that they should be worried about those things if they haven't thought about it or if they didn't know that that's a problem. So you have to agitate the fears that they might not have yet, or the fears that they just might be kind of in the background because they haven't happened yet. They're not actually feeling the pain yet. So you have to kind of present the potential for pain. So that's basically how you handle that. Great question. So the questions will still work. So you will still say, looking forward down the road, what are you afraid will happen if you don't get the training? Are you afraid this will happen or that happen? And when they talk to you about that and you say, okay, imagining that happens in the future, that your dog is doing these things, how would that affect your everyday life? So they might still have impacts now because of the housebreaking and play biting and the dog whining at night and not knowing how to handle having a new puppy. And those are the things they might tell you, but they might not give you a whole lot to work with. So you might need to kind of pull at that thread a little bit more by asking hypotheticals about the future. This is officially the end of the day 2 class with all the things that you need to think about in order to have your greatest superpower to help you stand out and create much better programs so that you can make more in less time and have the kind of results that other people before you have had, that they are here to tell you is possible for you as well. Just have it playing while you're driving around or whatever you're doing in the next 24 hours. Thank you guys so much for being here. Talk to you soon. See you guys.